to get in through on the show as well. First thing I wanted to start off talking about was the striker situation. Obviously, we saw last week Timo Werner went to, well, I think he has signed for Chelsea on loan now. Where does that leave Manchester United in their situation?
Yeah, look, at the moment, from what I heard, Manchester United had some contacts with agents of players, as we mentioned here. Timo Werner was one of them. Donny Malen is another player they discussed, never discussed in the negotiation for Jadon Sancho. This was something separate in terms of discussions with these new agents, because they have very good relationship with these new agents. SEG agency he appointed at the beginning of December. They had discussions with the agents of Seru Girassi at Stuttgart, for example, but the player is now at the AFCON, so it's a complicated situation. So they had some conversations with agents of strikers. Same happened with Choupo-Moting, for example, some weeks ago. So they are speaking to some agents, but at the same time, they're still not speaking directly to any club to open negotiation for a new striker. So I think they will wait a bit to understand who is the best option available on the market. For Timo Werner, they never had any concrete contact with Leipzig. They only had a conversation with the agents to understand the conditions of the deal, and that's it. So Man United are still discussing that internally, and I still think that it's important to understand what happens with Anthony Martial to see what Man United will do in that position, because I still see Martial leaving Man United. If it's not going to be now, it's going to be in the summer as a free agent. But in case they receive a proposal now, this could be an interesting situation also for Man United to bring in a new striker. So they're taking their time. I think is part of the strategy.
Just a few names. Obviously, you've mentioned Girassi and Malen, and Werner's off the table now. Do people? I saw a story about Jonathan David today. Do people like that come into play? Do you think there's any sort of shock? I've heard people mention NDK as well, which I would not expect to happen. Is there any sort of play like that?
I think players like Jonathan David at the moment are very expensive. The price of Jonathan David is different than what we said in the summer, because now he has only 1 year and a half left on his contract at Lille. So it could be something, I think, around 35, 40 million euros, but it's still too expensive for Man United, because I don't think they're going for that kind of deal in the January transfer window. I think they're looking for an opportunity. Then let's see what they decide to do. But at the moment, it's still quite in terms of contacts with clubs. It's still internal discussion and some discussion with the agents of the players. And let's see what they will decide to do when it's going to be time to negotiate with clubs and to start a proper negotiation.
In relation to the January transfer window for Manchester United, are we assuming, like other windows, that there really isn't any money there to go and do a deal? I saw this morning about Todibo, and there was mention of Chelsea and I think AC Milan. Do you think Manchester United, if Chelsea did bid for Todibo and they wanted him, have they got that type of money, or do you think it's more they've got to sell to buy or look at loan deals in January?
I think it's going to be, for Todibo, it's going to be very complicated to see him leaving Nice in January, because Tottenham wanted him and they were prepared to put big money on the table, and Nice didn't want to negotiate, not even for 35 or 40 million euros. So I think it's going to be very difficult. And I still think that Todibo can be a candidate for Manchester United in the summer transfer window. In case he doesn't leave the club now in January, I think he will be one of the names we will mention for Man United again in the summer transfer window, because he's always been appreciated by people at the scouting. And obviously now with Ineos Group into Man United, it could make things easier also to sign the player. And from what I'm hearing, he remains one of the players highly rated also by Erik ten Hag, because last summer it was Benjamin Pavard and Todibo, the two options for Man United to replace Harry Maguire. Then Maguire didn't join West Ham and all the deals collapsed, but Todibo was there and Todibo is still there. So I'm sure they still appreciate him and still believe that he could be one of the names next to Antonio Silva and others for the big centre-back they want to sign in the summer. So for January, I think it's going to be complicated. I'm not aware of any proposal from AC Milan for January, not aware of any proposal from Chelsea for January. So from what I'm hearing at the moment, the situation is still quiet around Todibo, and let's see what happens in the next 2-3 weeks, but I think it could be one for the summer.
And in the January market, if it's not going to be incomings that we know about at the moment, plenty of rumours around the likes of Varane, Casemiro yesterday. Are these players that you would expect to go in January, or is it more likely that this is part of a re-strategy in the summer?
I think it's more likely to see these kind of movements in the summer. Then we know the interest from Saudi is there, but the Saudi market is still very quiet. It's not just about these two names. In general, it's still very quiet because they are deciding, the PIF, the public fund, is deciding how to act, how much of budget they want to invest in the January transfer window. So at the moment, it's still very quiet, and we have to wait, I think, till next week before we understand what they really want to do in January. The interest is still there. They had some contacts to understand the situation of Varane, of Casemiro. It was end of October, beginning of November. They already had an interest in the summer. So this is not new interest, but Man United have not been approached by any Saudi club yet. And also on player side, the situation is still very quiet. So at the moment, nothing is happening. And I think this is something that could be discussed probably in the summer transfer window.
From what you're hearing, Fabrizio, do you think this is coming from Manchester United, or do you think it's Casemiro and Varane? Because what we were talking about this on the show last night, it feels like it's a strategy from Manchester United to clear out as many big wages as they can. Or is it actually that Casemiro and Varane would like to leave? Who do you think is pushing this?
No, I think it's very clear that Man United want to change the situation in terms of wages. I think it's very clear, and it's something also we can respect. Ineos always had different model for what they did at Nice. Obviously, it's not the same level of club, so wages have to be different. But at the same time, they want to build a different kind of project, also in terms of wages, salaries. This can't continue with crazy salaries. Obviously, if you have superstars, this is the case. But for Varane, Casemiro, probably the best way was to go on different kind of project in terms of how to build the contract of the player. So this is, I think, the way for Man United, probably not for January, but for the summer transfer window, with a new director, with new people in charge, is also going to be part of the mission to get rid of some big salaries and change the contracts of some players.
And just quickly, that just reminds me, on the director situation, have you heard anything around what Manchester United might do there? We've heard of Dan Ashworth. I was quite intrigued to hear about Andrea Berta being linked to the job as well. Any movement on that, Paul Mitchell, and where Man United might be going?
I will still keep an eye on Dan Ashworth. From what I'm hearing, they really, really appreciate him. People at Ineos, obviously, they really appreciate him. They appreciate what he's doing, what he did, and they believe he could be perfect for a Manchester United job. So I think Dan Ashworth is the name they have on top of their list. Of course, as I mentioned last time here, it's important to understand what kind of structure they want to build, because this is the crucial point, and this is what they're discussing at Ineos now. If they want to go with just one person in charge of the transfer window, or maybe if they want to go with maybe 2-3 people with different kind of structure. So this is the crucial point they are discussing, and they are trying to find the best solution, obviously, for the summer transfer window, because to build that kind of structure in January is not possible. But Dan Ashworth is the name they have on top of their list. They really appreciate him. They believe he could be perfect for this Manchester United job. Then from Newcastle, they insist on Dan Ashworth only focused on their project. Really happy to be there. So I think it's not going to be an easy one. But if I have to spend one name today, I will still go with Dan Ashworth, because Man United really, really like him, and Ineos will push to try to make it happen.
Hazim's just asked us a question here. Is there any chance that PSG move for Marcus Rashford in the summer when Kylian Mbappe leaves?
I don't know what happens in the summer. I don't know who will be PSG manager, who will be Man United situation with the director, what kind of project they will have. Honestly, I have no idea. But what's true is that 1 year and a half ago, they really wanted Marcus Rashford. They really tried to sign Marcus Rashford with a really big proposal. I don't think, honestly, for Man United, part of the plans is to sell Marcus Rashford, because I still think that they want to protect this image of players who come from the academy, players who can be the face of this project for present and future, and this is why they extended his contract. So I don't think it's going to be an easy one for PSG or any other club, but it will depend on many factors, and really, in football, 6 months is a long time, so we have to see what happens in the summer.
And just a couple of players that we probably expect to leave very, very soon. What's the latest on Jadon Sancho and Hannibal Mabry? Dortmund and Sevilla, or are those going to fall through? What do you know about those?
Look, for Hannibal is a very special situation, strange, because obviously he decided not to go to the AFCON with Tunisia, because he wants to play for his new club as soon as possible. So I believe that this week will be important to decide his future. He almost decided his future between Friday and Saturday, because he had proposals, obviously, for a loan from Olympique Lyon, from Freiburg, and from Sevilla. He told Sevilla, okay, I want to join you. So his decision was very clear to go to Sevilla on loan. Then what happened is that after 2-3 hours, Everton approached the player and also approached Manchester United for a loan deal negotiation. And now it's on the player. Hannibal has to decide if he wants to respect his pact with Sevilla, or if he wants to consider this possibility to stay in the Premier League and go to Everton. So this is going to be the player's decision. And it's also important to see what kind of deal Man United will accept, because these clubs want to include an option to buy in the deal for Hannibal, but I believe that Man United will ask for a buyback clause. So there is still some work to do before saying that Hannibal is gone, but I still think that he will go on loan. And for Sancho, I think it's just a matter of time. It will be this week, from what I'm hearing. So Borussia Dortmund are really advancing on the final details of this story. It's about the loan fee, the salary coverage. You know, in this case, it's obviously when there is an important player going on loan, you always need to discuss all single details of this deal. But I think at the end, Man United will get something around 4 or 5 million euros between loan fee and salary coverage. The player is ready to go. The player is pushing to go. So I still see Jadon Sancho joining Borussia Dortmund, waiting on the final details.
One question, we can't really talk about speculation for the summer, but this looks like when Manchester United will have a very big summer, certainly outgoings, incomings. In relation to the sort of money that Man United may have available in the summer, is there any discussion on what that would be on, and also how that could be impacted if they are not in the Champions League? Do you think that will have a direct impact on what Manchester United spend in the summer, or are you expecting a big influx of cash from Ineos?
No, look, I think the Champions League spot is going to be a crucial part of the project for Manchester United. It's going to be really, really important. Then, honestly, I have no idea about the budget yet. I think it will take some time. It's always something that they decide around March, April. I think around that period of time, we will have the situation clear on how much Man United want to invest in the summer transfer window. But I still think the Champions League spot will have an impact. It's something really, really important for Man United. And it's going to be important also to see what they do with the situation of some of these players, because we discussed about Varane. He's out of contract, Martial is out of contract, but then there is a player like Casemiro, and they need to discuss with him to understand what happens in the summer. Then there are players like Sancho and Greenwood who will be back from loan, and it's going to be very important to see what Man United want to do with them. So there are many big decisions to do before saying, okay, this is the budget we want to invest in the summer transfer window. So I think it's going to be a very, very big time for Man United also to decide on these players before investing big money on the market.
And also with regards to another story that's come out in the last few days, Michael Elise of Crystal Palace. I mean, there's quite a simple deal for United to do there, potentially, in sending Wan-Bissaka back there and doing some sort of deal there. But apparently he's got a release clause, expecting to move in the summer. Is that sort of a deal that you'd fancy United to have a good chance of winning, or do you think there's too much competition there?
I think there will be competition. It's true that Manchester United, that people in Manchester United appreciate him. Then let's wait for the new director, because at the end it's going to be the new director to say, okay, this is the player we want and this is the player we sign. But it's true that people at the club appreciate Olise. There are also other clubs in the race, I'm sure, because Chelsea wanted him last summer and Chelsea are still keeping close eye to the situation. There are also other clubs trying to understand the conditions of the release clause, but the release clause is there. This is also true. So I think Olise will be one of the names to watch in the summer transfer window for sure. Again, I'm not able to confirm that he's close to Man United or top target for Man United, because this will depend on a new director. And the director will be an important director for Man United. We mentioned the Rashford. Let's see if it's going to be him or anyone else. But for Ineos, it's really important to have the director 100% involved in the process to decide, okay, this is the player we need. Obviously, the manager will be important, but the director will be crucial. This is the model they had at Nice, where, for example, the current coach, Farioli, had his own opinion on transfers, but was not deciding all the single transfers. So this will be an important point. And this is why I say, okay, Olise, like Todibo or many others, can be players appreciated, but then there will be a director to say, okay, this is the player we need. I think this will be one of the big changes we will see at Manchester United in the next months.
Hopey says, is there any chance of Ivan Toney coming to Manchester United in January?
In January, I think it is almost impossible. It's too expensive, really. Brentford started from 65, 70 million pounds in November. Then they saw that in the January transfer window, there are basically no strikers available on the market, because Osimhen is not available, Šeško is not available, and many others are not available. And so now they are around 90, 100 million pounds. And I think this is almost impossible, not just for Man United, but for many other clubs.
Also, the Saudi Arabian market, we've seen Jordan Henderson potentially wanting to leave. Do you think there will be, I mean, I don't know whether Manchester United can get involved in this, but there are good players in Saudi. Do you think we will see the Saudi league open to that in some sort of promotion for their own league, allowing people like Benzema, Ruben Neves, maybe Mane to go on loan to Premier League clubs? Do you think that's an avenue for Man United and others to look at?
I don't think this is going to be super easy, not just for Jordan Henderson, but also for all the other players you mentioned. I don't think they will make life super easy for these players to leave already in January. Maybe in the summer it could be different, but in January I don't think this is going to be an easy process. Look, for example, at Ruben Neves. We had rumors for 1 month about Ruben Neves returning, and then they decided from Al Hilal that he was not for sale and he's going nowhere. So I don't think it's going to be that easy. It's true that Jordan Henderson wants to try a new experience, But it's also true that it's not that easy to negotiate with Saudi clubs on a loan deal, because obviously they paid big amount of money to have these players at their clubs, and so it's not that easy, especially in January.
Fabrizio, that is absolutely flown by. I can't believe we've been talking for 15 minutes already, but as always, absolutely fantastic, and really appreciate your time. And I know we'll be speaking to you again next week.
Thank you, and see you again. Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks, Fabrizio. Bye-bye. That did absolutely fly by. Let me get that back on there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's I don't need these on anymore. I think it's a really interesting situation with Manchester United at the moment. Some of the key points from there are that Manchester United, when you look at the striker situation and you see people talking about people like Jonathan David, we don't have the money for that. Garassi's at the AFCON, that would take 15 million quid. The Timo Werner thing is very obvious. It's exactly what I said the other day. We didn't get Timo Werner because we're not ready to get Timo Werner, because we've got our finger up our arse again, as we always do. As Fabrizio said there, there's nothing there for Manchester United to do in relation to a striker. They are very much in a position where they are looking at trying to move Anthony Martial out. And what I predicted will happen will probably happen. Whatever striker we bring in will be at the arse end of this transfer window, and it will be desperate. Just the same as it was with Ighalo, just the same as it was with Weghorst. We somehow seem to not be aware that after December comes January. We're never ready. And fair play to Spurs. They were obviously prepared, and they've gone and got Werner on loan. Whether you want Werner or not, there is no alternative lined up to go, let's go and get that. We weren't probably even negotiating with Werner because we weren't ready to negotiate with Werner, because we're still trying to remove Anthony Martial. And this is the state of the football club that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos inherit. An absolute shithole of a football club when it comes to transfers, recruitment, and forward planning. So Jonathan David, forget about it. We haven't got any money. Garassi is at the AFCON and will cost money that we don't have. Malen is a loan deal that we're not really even negotiating with at the moment because we've got to get people out. You know, it's January the 8th and we're still trying to get people out before we start thinking about getting people in. What a competent football club does is they do this stuff in December so that they can hit deals in early January. But we never do, because it will be things like, well, if we get Werner in on the 8th of January instead of the 28th of January, that's 20 days of paying him wages we shouldn't need to pay, because it's always a business decision from Manchester United. So, and also, let's be completely clear here. Spurs have gone and got Werner very, very quickly. That's target one gone. Who's trying to get Malen on loan? So why are we trying to get Malen on loan? Then there's not big lists of clubs looking at the players that we're looking at, and we're looking at players on the cheap. Very, very cheap. In fact, I saw a story today that Arsenal are now after Everton's Onana, who's a player we've been looking at for ages. Todibo is a player that we've been looking at for ages, that people like Tottenham have already had a bid rejected for, and they've moved on. Our targets get targeted by other people because we're so bloody slow. So yeah, and Sir Suck says, what about Solanke? Well, what about him? Bournemouth are going to want 50, 60 million quid for him, and we're not whether you think it's good or not. Lingard on loan, says Keel. Yeah, no one's going to like that one. Are we scouting any young Brazilian forwards, says Mario? I don't think we're scouting anyone. Chris, welcome to Members Club. Chris Broadhurst, thank you very much. We spoke about Tony. Slow Sports News says, yeah, are United looking to move Martial this month or sell him in the summer? Clearly funds are needed for us to make even a loan purchase. Well, if he goes in the summer, he goes for free, Slow Sports News. So I think we're trying to move him on now. That's what we're trying to do. Todibo's going to cost money. I think we're hoping that people, other clubs don't sign him so we can get him in the summer. And most interesting of all, and this will probably get lost because we've got a match tonight, but I absolutely was hinting at this last night, and maybe it's a bit of a reality bite for people, but it feels to me that all Ineos have got to do is come in and recruit better, and Manchester United will win the league. And I think people are in for a very harsh reality, maybe even Sir Jim himself, because I've been watching Man United all my life, and we've been watching Man United for the last few years together every single game. You know, we're not wet behind the ears. We know the problems at Manchester United, and it's not just good recruitment that's going to turn this around. That's like saying, I've been trying to win a running race in crap trainers, and I get you a really good pair of trainers and you think you're going to beat everybody else. The fact that we've been wearing crap trainers doesn't make us run well, but that's not going to new trainers aren't going to make us win the race, because when you've got the right gear, you're up against elite runners either side of you and beyond. So we're not going to catch up with Man City and Liverpool and Arsenal just because we start getting recruitment right. They are elite, well-run machines with years on us, infrastructure. We're a long way behind. And there seems to be this myth in the media and in some of our fan base that just because we're going to get a director of football and have a strategic review, we're going to start winning the league. And you know it. You know there's people out there that think that's going to happen. And look, I hope it does happen, but I don't think it will. I don't think it will. We don't have the transfer budgets that other clubs have. We don't have the youth setup that other clubs have. We don't have the structure that other clubs have, and we don't have the coaching and training that other clubs have. So even with good recruitment, I still think we're going to be miles off. And that's why I asked the question of Fabrizio, because even if you've got the recruitment, and the recruitment to me is £200-300 million spent in the summer with a good director of football. Where's the £200-300 million coming from? Because that's why I asked Fabrizio, are United hindered in the summer if they don't get in the Champions League? You better believe it. You better believe it. Of course we bloody are. We're out of Europe at Christmas, so there's a huge, huge drop in revenue in the second half of the season. We're not going to make that up. We're not going to the Carabao Cup. We're not going to Wembley in the Carabao Cup. We're not going to be playing Europa League Thursday night games, 6 or 7 of those, getting money in. We're out. We've lost a load of money there. And if we're not in the Champions League in the summer for next season, we're going to lose a load of money there. Where is all this money coming from that we're going to spend? Even getting rid of Varane and Casemiro only saves you £20 million a year. There's no real sell-on value. So where's all this cash coming from? I think we're in for a very bumpy ride. That's the reality of 10 years of what we've been doing. And I think we're in for a bumpy ride. And I think some people just think, oh, in the summer, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be great. And I don't think so. Heard Southgate is free in the summer. I can see Sir Jim getting Potter or Southgate, says Andre. Well, let's just wait and see. If Sir Jim Radcliffe thinks that Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter are the guys to lead Manchester United, then there's going to be a lot of people saying, I told you so. I think we all know what they're going to be saying they told us was better for Manchester United. But look, the job is ridiculously hard when you don't own all of the football club and you're taking on the debt. It's hard. It's like managing Man United over the last 10 years. I think Sir Jim Radcliffe, to me, has got at least one arm tied behind his back, not owning the club and having to deal with the debt. They are very, very limiting things. He doesn't own all of the club. He can't make all of the decisions, and he's got huge debt. That makes it very, very, very difficult to be successful. We will only be back when the club is fully sold. So Jim isn't it? I don't know what he thinks this is. He just wanted to get hold of the club, says William. Well, look, I'm willing, as I've said before, to see how it goes, and I think there's a few ways that we can certainly improve, but not, we have been run badly, but I think people completely and utterly disrespect the groundwork Arsenal have put in over the last 3 years, the groundwork Liverpool have been putting in since the day Klopp came in, the groundwork that Newcastle are putting in now, the groundwork that Man City have been putting in for a decade. They have got infrastructures, coaches, and I mean, look, I hate to say this, but I look at that Liverpool team and it's sort of set up to dominate for the next 5 to 10 years. They've got a huge amount of players between the age of 22 and 27. And yeah, Mo Salah's not going to be part of that, and Van Dijk's not going to be part of that, but they've got a huge amount of players. And you could say the same about Arsenal. Again, they've got a large collection of players between 22 and 27 that they can just keep adding to. And United, we're only at the start of that journey. We are. In relation to other things that Fabrizio spoke about, Casemiro and Varane are not wanting to leave United. They're being forced out, as we suspected, because United want to reduce the wage bill and build this new future, of course. Also spoke about Sancho. That will happen this week, and Hannibal this week as well. So they'll be going out on loan. Director of football, Ashworth, is what Fabrizio is saying, what Man United want. Shea Adams swap deal for Martial. Are you trying to depress me, Casey? It's a massive game. I'm already getting bantered by Wigan fans. Like, don't make today any worse. Striker search, we can't give you anything on that because Man United aren't even looking for one at the moment. They're trying to get rid of Martial. Elise is a player that we'll be looking at, but obviously that's for the summer. And I think that that's sort of where we are at the moment. We need to get Anthony Martial out if we want to bring a striker in, and we're not looking. The one positive I would say is it doesn't look like we're going to. And Pellistri will leave as well, Tring. But the one positive I would say is it doesn't look like we're going to move Varane or Casemiro in January. And some would say, well, they are going to go at some point, and I agree with that. But I'm dead against getting rid of Varane or Casemiro in January. We still have a chance of finishing the season better than we started it. We still have a chance in the FA Cup, and I know we've got to cut costs. Clearly, we've got to cut costs for a multitude of reasons. But this season's been horrific. Can we just try and rescue something from this season? I.e., I'd like to see Martinez, Varane, and Casemiro back together as that triangle in front of our goalkeeper, and see if we can start to get some results back. Kobe Mainoo with Casemiro and Varane, I think, is the midfield we'd love to see, even if it's only for 4 months. I think that would be great for Mainoo's development. I think it would help Rasmus up front as well. I just think, look, can we grab something? Can we salvage something from this shit season? And can we just keep Casemiro and Varane until the summer? And let's just see what we can do. Because Martinez is back, Casemiro's back. And I'd like to see that. And you know what? Harry Maguire had a good start to the season as well. So, look, it'd be nice just to have a go at this season, hopefully with our players staying fit. Slow Sports News says, give Ineos a chance to get the right people through the door. It's a massive infrastructure that needs to change. And in relation to Ten Hag, give him until the summer to make the big choice. And who's your ideal signing this summer, says Chris? Mate, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that because I don't know what's going to happen. You know, on the one hand, we want to remove Casemiro and Varane to reduce the wage bill, and on the other hand, Fabrizio is saying I can't see them getting rid of Rashford. They want to use him as the face of the project, and I'm like, you know, this as somebody said on social media, this is Rashford's second bad season in 3. He had a bad season the season before Ten Hag. He had a great season last year, and he's having a bad season now. How can Rashford be the face of Man United's new Ineos brand when he's not consistent? And these are the things that I'm not saying sell Rashford, by the way, but I'm saying it doesn't fill you with a massive amount of confidence if that's the plan from Ineos, because he's had 2 bad seasons in 3. How are they going to change that around? Like, I look at Rashford and he looks lost at the moment, and this is a player I really like. So I'm like, how are we going to change that? Why has it happened? And how do you change that? I mean, it'd help if we just played him on the left wing for a start. But there's a lot of things that need to change at that football club. And if you get rid of Casemiro and you get rid of Varane, but you build your team around Rashford and Bruno, you've just got rid of 2 players who know how to win Champions Leagues and titles for 2 players who don't. So I don't know. I don't. What I'm trying to say is, it's not about selling players. It's not about buying players. It's not about cutting costs. It's not about how much we spend in the summer. All those things are factors. But the big thing we need to know is, what is the vision for Manchester United? Are we going to be lied to create dividends for the Glazers? Because for the last 10 years, we were told there's nothing in this market in the world that we can't do. We want to win titles. This is our project. And actually, all that really happened is people bought shirts, people turned up to games, people got excited, dividends went to the Glazers. We got further and further away from winning a league title, even though that was meant to be the aim. Are we again going to get told, we want to make Manchester great? We want to make Manchester United the biggest club in Europe. But actually, how are you going to do that? Because I look at that and I think it's virtually impossible. So how are you going to do it? You're not going to make Manchester United win the Premier League by selling your best players and reducing your wage bill. Not in the immediate future. It's going to be a very long future. And I'd rather get the truth that we're looking to stabilise and try and be a club that gets in the top 4 consistently every year and build from that, because the revenue from being in the Champions League every year will allow us to slowly but surely invest more in the club in a more stable way. That, to me, is truthful. What's not truthful is, yeah, we want to win the Premier League in the next 3 years. I don't see it. I think we're further away today from winning the Premier League than we've probably ever been. I think we were closer under Moyes. I think we were closer under Solskjaer. Today, I think we're further away from winning the Premier League than ever. Not because we've got a worse team, but because I know we're going to get rid of some really good players. So that's going to happen. And we are currently nowhere near top 4. So I think we're further away from winning the league than ever because there's this massive void of curiosity. You don't know what, at least with Solskjaer, when he said, I want to win the league, you knew what he was going to try and do and the players he was going to use to do it. The same with Jose. With this team, if they come out and say we're going to win the league, I'd go, well, I don't know who your centre-back's going to be next to Martinez. I don't know who your holding midfielder is going to be. I don't know enough about this team to know that it can win the league because we're basically going to knock it all down and start again, which is what I agree with. So I think right here, right now, we're further away than ever from winning the Premier League. And I'd like to get that honesty from Ineos or Sir Jim. I'd like them to come out and tell the truth. I'd like them to come out and say, look, where we are at the moment, we wouldn't be having a strategic review if we didn't need one. And we've got to be honest and say that this club doesn't consistently qualify for the Champions League. And that's top 4. So talking of winning the league, you've got to finish first. And we don't finish in the top 4 that regularly. So talk of winning the Premier League isn't helpful for the project we're trying to build. We want to take Manchester United back to the top of English football. But in the immediate future, we've got to provide a structure and foundation to be able to do that. So in the next 2 to 3 years, consistently being in the top 4 would be a massive step forward for a club that doesn't do that. And then that will be the springboard to go where we need to go. Will we get that honesty? It's not a nice truth, but it's a harsh truth. I don't think we'll get it. I think we'll get, we want to be the best. And that's just not, we're better than that. We're better than that as a football club, and we're better than that as a fan base. We want to be the best team in England. When? Because anyone with a brain would say that's not going to happen for at least 5 years. So what are we going to do over the next few years? And that's a truth that we've never been delivered that I think we all crave. Welcome to the Members Club, Jay. Casey says send scouts to South America to poach future stars. And AJ Johnson says we're spoiled as fans for so long now. We're almost hitting a rock bottom and it hurts. And I'm having a hard time to see a route back to the top. And that's why honesty and transparency would be so important. You know, I really do believe that we need some harsh honesty. And I would rather have that. Look, if I'm nothing to do with Manchester United and I don't really know what's going on in detail, but if I was doing a press conference tomorrow, I'd say what I've just said there. I would say we are not a football club that consistently wins big trophies, and we are not a football club that even consistently gets in the top 4 every year. 20 years ago, if we finished second, it was a failure. Nowadays, if we finish 4th, that's a peak. And there's been troughs. So my job is to make sure over the next 3 years, we are consistently in the top 4 clubs in England. And if you're in that position, history shows us if you're in the top 4 clubs in England, you will go deep in the Champions League. So that's getting us closer to our end goal of winning the Premier League again and winning the Champions League again. But to do that, we've got to be realistic. We can't go from where we are now to winning the league because the gap is too big. We have to be first a club that consistently gets in the top 4. Arsenal fans are struggling with this because they want to go from nowhere to winning the league and they're moaning about it. What they don't realise is Arsenal have been in the top 4 for the last 2 years. They haven't done that for many years. That is a step forward for Arsenal, and they're building a young, vibrant squad that they can add to and build and experience each year. I see Arsenal in the top 4 for the next 3 or 4 years on top of last year. That's a platform to build. That's what Man United need to do. But we won't, because we'll start talking about we're going to win the league. We're going to win the league. And actually, many of us want to win the league, but I'd swap 5 years in the top 4 for the next 5 years than the last 5 years every day of the week. Anyway, look, that's maybe a bigger conversation. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We are back tonight with the match. It's Manchester United against Wigan. We better bloody win. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Smash a like on the video and subscribe. I will speak to you later on. Take care.